What happens when you take two complete strangers from opposite sides of the world?
Ask them to communicate, talk, and more importantly, listen to each other.
In a world full of ever-changing ideas, opinions, and the noise of modern life, the art of true communication seems harder than ever.
But we're here to give it a shot and see what we can learn about each other, the world around us, and what really makes us tick.
This isn't a show about one thing, it's a show about everything.
We're going to dive into everything,
Challenge each other's views.
and discover what connects us across cultures and continents.
I'm Harriet Gould, coming to you from England.
I'm Rodney Watt, speaking from the United States. And this is...
Yes, but you're wrong.
Want to start an argument with just one word? It's easy. Just say immigration. Say it anywhere and you're bound to spark a conversation, often a heated one. And believe it or not, we've got a lot to say on that topic too. So today we're diving into immigration, looking at it through the lens of semantics, policies, cultural impact, the role of the U.S., and even the surprising ways celebrities are turning this issue into a joke.
Rodney, hi. We're back for episode 3. We've had a few things happening this week in the news. Your president has been in the UK and he invited the British Prime Minister for tea, it seems.
Anytime Trump can go promote some of his properties, he's going to jump at the chance. He's employing people from Scotland over there.
It did seem quite odd that he seemed to be inviting the Prime Minister, who was on his own territory, to come and have tea. I thought there was one point that it's a shame this didn't happen before episode 2, actually, because I thought somebody asked them what they thought about free speech. Trump said whatever he said, I don't know who you're directing that question to. And Keir Starmer said, we've had free speech here for a long time. And it made me laugh a little bit inside because I thought he's doing a lot to try and quell that. Then maybe the subtext was, we've had it here for a long time and that's enough now. Maybe we should stop all that. You can't help thinking these things.
He had to remind him there's free speech and it all has to do with Truth Social. That's good. So stay on Truth Social, I guess.
On to the topic for this week. This one's making me nervous, more nervous even than last week. We're going to be talking about immigration.
That's great. Why does it make you nervous? Are they going to come stay at your house?
They're welcome to, in fact, depending. And that potentially brings us to the first segment of this, which is illegal immigration. There has been a lot of talk about whether or not this is even the right way to describe someone who hasn't lawfully entered a country. I don't see a problem personally with using the term illegal immigrant.
It's a great term because it's a precise legal term. It's a term that our Congress and government uses. In fact, they've changed a little because literally it's illegal alien in all the legislation that's been passed. It's illegal. Again, we're hijacking words. We don't call homeless people homeless anymore. We call them unhoused, which makes no sense because not everybody lives in a house. Some people live under a bridge and in a cardboard box. Yeah, they're illegal immigrants. And they've entered the country illegally. So I don't see a problem with it. We want to get sidetracked with terminology so we don't have to actually address the issue. Our politicians and everybody can try to find this middle ground and argue whether an immigrant entered the country illegally or legally and what we should call them. They are over here and they've committed a crime. Let's all get comfortable with the fact they're illegal because they've committed a crime. If I ran through your airport and ran through all the checkpoints and jumped in a cab, I would have committed a crime that your country could arrest me for, right? Mm-hmm. So whether anybody likes it or not, these people have all committed crimes. So It's a little rich now for Democrats, especially when for the last 4 years, we've had to hear no one's above the law. Except for migrants.
I think it should go without saying that everybody is automatically a valid person. Some of these pressure groups, they get a bit of mileage. And let's face it, and there's an economy in it for enforcing a change in language to put a point across that each person matters. And if you somehow call them something else, then it makes it seem like they matter less, which, like you say, we should get comfortable with the idea that if somebody has committed a crime, then we can refer to them as being illegal. That's the trouble with semantics. You can tie yourself in a lot of knots just trying to make people not be dehumanized, I suppose. And in so doing, it further dehumanizes them.
And the irony about it really for me is in 1986, Bill Clinton passed some legislation that made it illegal and started this deportation push for anybody that committed crimes and made it retroactive. So you could have been in this country for 20 some odd years and working towards becoming a citizen. And if you had committed a crime, the Reform and Control Act made it possible for the United States to deport people. President Obama deported 2.8 million people. In fact, he had the nickname Deporter in Chief. Trump closed the border. 0 people came in last month.
What you've just described in the US sounds like a brilliant deterrent. I like deterrents. I think they're a good idea. And the whole point is they deter people from wanting. You're saying people are flooding over here. I think it's because there aren't any reasonable deterrents in place. And all we're doing everywhere is talking about the words. What is that about?
It makes no sense what's going on. We've had legislation, which, by the way, was passed when Democrats controlled the House and the Senate over here. We've had legislation in the 1800s that literally wrote in the law that they could block idiots, lunatics, and convicts. I'm not really sure how you identify an idiot or lunatic, unless you're listening to me, maybe. There's a law in the United States that employers cannot, it's illegal, and they can be fined, ticketed, arrested for hiring migrants. And now we've been told the last 4 years, no one's above the law unless you enter the country illegally. Over the last 4 years, we've had 20 million people enter our country, unaccompanied minors, all kinds of stuff. And our government have lost track of close to 300,000 children under the age of 16. What do they think about how this administration's handling the migrant situation?
I think it's pretty split in the UK. Plenty of people are very, very happy about the fact that there's somebody on the world stage that is leading by example, towing a fairly strong line on immigration. I think there are a lot of people who wish that was what was happening here. And then you've got this other segment of people over here who almost want to take this sort of moral high ground, moral status. They think they're being good by saying, oh, we welcome everyone in. But I think the reality speaks for itself in a way, because whether or not people are comfortable or open to immigration, illegal or otherwise, the reality is when you start getting a big number of a different culture in any place, it does start affecting the makeup of that place. There's an inherent Britishness. And yes, you know, we're a little eccentric and a little odd. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's our Britishness, but we have a certain way. There are quite a few examples that sort of leave me on edge. A friend of mine rang the other day. We were chatting, you know, she'd gone to Folkestone. It's just, you know, it's a nice little seaside town. She thought it'd be nice to go to the beach, have a swim, have some fish and chips, whatever. And she got there and she said it was extraordinary, the number of Afghans on the beach. It was completely awash. And she's talking about Afghan people, not Afghan hounds. When you've got a noticeable influx of immigrants. And what were all these Afghan people doing on the beach? She said it gave her a real sense of unease. It's a real culture clash. And it's nothing wrong with difference, I don't think, because there are some odd things that happen in Folkestone.
This is the issue I think a lot of Americans have. They can walk across the border here from Mexico. You can walk across the border from Canada. You're an island, okay? Afghan people, somebody
they were brought here.
Right.
They were brought here. They were rescued, but nevertheless, it had the same impact when my friend encountered them on the beach, because there were so many. And I think this potentially demonstrates the problem with lack of integration. If you are going to have migration or refugees or immigration, you also need proper integration.
We're deporting them in mass. And we talked a little bit about it. You asked me about Alligator Alcatraz. They're upset because of the conditions outside the prison. What do they want? They want to pull up Ubers and just have Ubers there in case someone escapes so they can escape in comfort. It makes no sense. Right?
Well, they could do what we're doing. They could do what we're doing here, which is putting them up in 5-star hotels all over the country. Believe it or not, that is what's happening.
We were doing the same. So what are you doing now? Like we're
That's what we're
deported.
doing now.
It sounds like I should take the family over there and we just run through the airport and bust through TSA. If I get put up in a 5-star hotel, I'm in.
Yes, this is where we will one day have a sponsorship break, but we aren't quite there yet. So, as we do, I would like to share some of your comments about the show after episode 2. Matt says, I like that they're just talking calmly and no one is screaming or yelling. I could listen to this very easily. Thank you, Matt. That's very encouraging. Kim shares, just listened, love it. It reflects real conversations happening all over the world. Well, I hope that's right, Kim. Thank you very, very much. Warren's reaction, the British host, meh. I've never been called meh before, well, that I know of. But fair enough. Maybe I should add that to my LinkedIn profile. Anyway, I love your comments. Thank you for listening and for sharing. Now we're going to get back to the show.
Homeland Security did a calculation just in year 2023 alone and 2024. The cost of illegal migrants, illegal, not legal, illegal migrants, was $451 billion a year. The benefit of illegal migrants, so the people, this is the part where I sort of think this is somewhat insensitive when you have these politicians get on TV and they're like, who else is going to, pick up the garbage and pick your fruit and do this menial labor, right? Like only migrants can pick up garbage and pick fruit, right? The benefit is 96 billion. So that's a massive deficit and toll. And here's where the toll goes. Education, healthcare, law enforcement, welfare, housing, transportation. We're giving them debit cards. Everybody's up in arms. They're all over the place. You can't really drive without seeing a family with a sign that says, in English, by the way, I don't know who wrote the sign for them, says, I'm an illegal migrant, and they have like 3 kids sitting on the curb.
Nations don't have their own money, they have taxpayer money. That means it's a cost to all of our pockets. And I think that's where the frustration happens. And then I wonder, say, for example, we have, a continuation of illegal immigration, and then those illegal immigrants become parents. Should the child have automatic citizenship?
Not that I speak for America, even though I speak for America. I think a majority of people are okay with that. It's not that many people. It doesn't preclude the parents from being deported. So that's the real problem. And then people think that's harsh. So they say, okay, Rod, that's terrific. You had a kid. You got to leave the country. You want to take the kid with? What's very interesting is Trump's got a case right now where he's challenging birthright citizenship and he wants to end it. He signed an executive order called 14160. At some point in time, the Supreme Court's going to have to rule on it. Maybe if the Supreme Court kept that in place, maybe our Congress would actually get together and do their job, and the Republicans and Democrats would maybe pass some legislation. What happens when people have illegal immigrants or undocumented migrants or unauthorized migrants are having babies in the UK?
Here, they're considered foreign nationals. They have to secure at some point legal status to stay in the UK, but they don't get it naturally. People just want illegal immigration to stop. And then if children are born, it can be celebrated in a way that it would whether they had been here since the dawn of time or they came a few years ago, and it wouldn't matter because it would be a managed, controlled situation, and there would be no fear in the nation of it being overwhelmed by people from a different culture, because there's nothing necessarily fundamentally wrong with a different culture, but what there is the risk that that culture can overwhelm your own culture. And I really do think that's what people might object to.
Should the children be allowed health care?
I can't see how they shouldn't be. But that's why the numbers need to be controlled, because it's inhumane to deny anyone, especially a child, healthcare. Free at the point of use healthcare is a very good thing that shouldn't be denied to anyone. It's the way it's been in this country for a long time, and I think it should continue. But it can't continue indefinitely when the numbers keep increasing so dramatically. The healthcare system is under strain. I can't see how anyone would, in their right mind, turn a child away from a hospital if they needed it, illegal or not. There shouldn't be any illegal immigration. full stop. That way we can run a healthy, tight, generous ship. If a child fell ill and someone who'd immigrated had to take their child to the doctor, what would happen?
It's the American way. You just rack up bills and you don't pay them. I mean, that's what we do here. You take your kid to the doctors treat them, and then you leave. And then if you don't want to pay, you don't pay. We have Medicare, Medicaid. We have programs here for families that access them, which is great. I mean, that's one thing we do well here, I believe. People have access to medicine and programs here to make sure that, to your point, it's not inhumane. Healthcare is a problem. There's a lot of people going broke, losing their homes and et cetera due to the rising costs of healthcare. Somebody's got to pay for this, right? Doctors aren't going to work for free. It's a almost a $500 billion drain on the United States, all this illegal immigration. We're worried about kids getting healthcare. There's 300,000 missing migrant kids. Healthcare, why don't you find the missing kids you let into the country? Trafficking of kids and missing kids here is a real issue and problem. But here's the nuance. We're tracking missing kids who are citizens down. We're not tracking missing kids who are undocumented because they're undocumented. My point is, and many people's points here, when you open a border and you let millions and millions and millions of people in here, there's kids that are unaccompanied kids, and then we take custody of them and then ship them off to a foster home, and then we go knock on the door of the foster home, and then they're like, what kids? It's a big mess. And you would think that as a compassionate country, both our countries, that help solve problems around the globe, this would be much more of an issue, and we wouldn't approach it with such a callous manner.
The whole thing's very sad, and the more firm we are about it, the less heartbreak and life lost there'll be. Ultimately, there'll be fewer missing people, fewer deaths, save a lot of people, a lot of anguish and a lot of heartache, and as I said, ultimately you'd probably save a lot of life as well. This is where we take a quick break for a message for our sponsors, if we had any. Since we don't, I'd like to share this opportunity for you to sponsor one of the fastest growing podcasts hosted by a woman named Harriet and a man named Rodney in the world. To learn how to sponsor Yes But You're Wrong, email us at yesbutyourewrong@gmail.com. And now back to the show. But you know what? Speaking of children who need families, it was a little while ago now, probably about 10 or so years ago, where all the unrest was happening in Syria, and they were making calls out for people to adopt the children, the Syrian refugee children. At the time, I thought, well, I could adopt a child, I could adopt a Syrian refugee, and I kept seeing it on the news and thinking, my God, yeah, the poor children, look at them, what a state they're in. And I thought, I've got a spare room, I'm pretty well set up, fine, I'll make my inquiries. So I did. And do you know what stopped me from being able to adopt one of these poor children?
What?
Sharia law. Sharia law states that regardless of your status in terms of whether you've actually got the practical amenities, i.e. enough money and enough room to adopt some child who needs a person to adopt them, you have to be married. As you know, I'm not married. I wasn't then either. And so that was that. Come to think of it, it wasn't even a question. It was, oh, and you're married, of course. A complete assumption, almost to be glossed over. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm single. And they said, oh, right. Well, no, like Sharia law clearly states that you can only adopt if you're married. So that was the end of that. And I just thought, you're either desperate for people to adopt these children, or you're not. I've got a good setup here. I could bring this child up and they'd have a nice life.
I think it's fascinating because it is their culture having to assimilate once you go to a different country. We didn't let gays adopt, and then we evolved and said, okay, I guess if you're in a loving home, maybe the Syrian people will get tired of maybe seeing hungry or dead babies and let other people adopt them, I guess.
These charities supposedly are desperate to save these children, and they would rather put their laws ahead of the laws of the nation that the child was potentially going to be rescued into, thus putting the child's future in jeopardy. They would rather do that than just accept, okay, they're going to have a nice life. Okay, we can overlook our marriage law.
It's a tad bit sad and I guess ironic that other people would want to go to a different country and then push back on assimilating.
I think when a child's future is at stake, I really think that that's slightly
yeah, it's always about the kids, so it's not about the kids.
I just don't think people would mind as much about any immigration. I might have already said this. When the people came here, they tried to integrate, but of course they don't. If anything, they want to bring their own culture here and have their culture dominate our culture, which is obviously going to cause a conflict.
You know, we were over in Somalia and then we left because there were problems, and we took 30,000 refugees and we put them all in Minnesota. But it's interesting because they've not even given it a second thought to do anything to integrate themselves into our culture. They're all citizens. We made them citizens. They enjoy the freedoms of this country, and I don't think they particularly care one way or the other about assimilating.
There's no incentive to. That's the trouble. Incentives and disincentives are quite powerful things, and human psychology does transcend borders. And if you apply appropriate incentives and appropriate deterrents, or disincentives, then it will resonate. It really will. There's no incentive at the moment. Then why would anyone bother? Because it's an effort to try and integrate and assimilate. Of course it is. So you have to have a reason to make that effort.
President Trump says 0 people came across the border. They have not coming because they know they're not going to get in.
And what about this, Rodney? Mexican immigrants are burning the American flag and asking for citizenship. You were a police officer, so you've got a really clear idea about what's a crime, what isn't. And it does seem like it's less of an emotional thing for you. Whereas I think for some people, the idea of people coming into the country and burning a flag and then asking for something in return would rile them a little bit more.
The idiot Colin Kaepernick, who was kneeling and everybody was kneeling for the flag. I didn't like that when they're singing the national anthem and they're kneeling. But the irony of it is that's what being a citizen of the United States gets you. You get to act like an idiot and kneel during the national anthem. You get to act like a fool and burn the flag, and you get to burn it and desecrate it, knowing that that's the symbol that allows you the freedom to burn it.
Right. The irony.
Right.
The irony is palpable.
And again, this is why I love free speech. Unless you let somebody act freely, you will find out in a nanosecond that you don't want to be around that person. You want to burn a flag and you're asking to be a citizen? Maybe the person that's giving you the test should take note. We track everybody doing everything. Burn all the flags you want. And then when you go take the test, maybe you don't pass the test. I don't know what to tell you.
Speaking of ironic, though, Americans do seem to be messing up Mexico at the moment. And the Mexicans aren't particularly happy about it. They're saying that Americans coming over there is driving the locals out. It's putting up the cost of buying a home and rent even.
I think if you want to go to Mexico, go to Mexico. I think Mexico is not a particularly safe place to be. I think it's ruled by cartels. They don't allow you to actually own the land. You can own the building on the land.
But it is Americans being hypocritical, right?
And
Mexicans?
I don't see it that way. And here's why. When they leave, they're showing their ID. They're not just, swimming across the Rio Grande and buying a house in Cozumel. They're documented over there. That way the cartel knows who to kidnap, right? So I don't think it's hypocritical. Good riddance. That's what I would say. See you later.
But Americans can take over what they want and drive people out.
Yeah, that's what we do. I mean, yes, that's exactly
that does seem.
Have you not been paying attention? That's what we do. We do it in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. Like, this is our specialty.
Do you reckon there's scope for Mexico to retaliate and build a great big wall to keep the rich Americans out?
No, because they need us. So they're not going to do anything. We could bring that country to a screeching halt. No, Mexico's not going to do anything except welcome American citizens.
And I guess that's what we've done, because there have been a whole bunch of high-profile American citizens that decided they were going to leave America if Trump won the last election, which he did, and they were true to their word. They left.
No, I'm calling BS on that. It is just a bunch of self-serving BS. Are you talking about Ellen DeGeneres? You're talking about her?
Yes.
Yeah.
She of the Cotswolds.
See you next Tuesday. That's what I got to say about that woman. This is woman. This is a woman that in 2016 tweeted, "Happy birthday, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, as I call him, my cuddle McSnuggle stuff. You don't need to know why." And then, ironies of all ironies, she didn't leave when Trump was president the first time. She didn't leave after Trump became president. She left when P. Diddy was arrested.
I think it was a cover. Surely not.
She's the most disingenuous, nasty person walking around planet Earth. She was sued by a bunch of staffers on her talk show. She's Mrs. Be kind. Be kind. This is her being kind. This is her employees. It's a toxic work environment. There is sexual harassment nonstop, intimidations, firing for taking medical leave, racism. All her staff were told if you saw her, you had to look down at the floor. You couldn't look her in the eye. She was already at her $20 million estate prior to the results in the election in the United States of America. And this is what I find so disgusting about people like her. She sits there and she's like, "Oh no, I had to leave because Trump's going to get rid of gay marriage." This woman's worth $500 million. If you really thought that was the case, why wouldn't you come back here and fight for all the people that maybe couldn't fight the same way you do, the same people that helped you earn that $500 million? She's a fake piece of shit. And all these other fake pieces of crap that sit there and go, "Oh, if he wins, I'm leaving," they're full of crap. It's a bunch of self-aggrandizing BS.
I think the left do like to afford more power than is necessary to the state. To your point about how much she's worth and what she could do with that platform and wealth, I don't know why it means so much to her. Once you've established an element of self-sufficiency or financial independence, it is far less relevant what any government does. So it does seem a bit extreme for her to have reacted in the way that she did.
Well, what do you guys think about having Ellen? It's bad enough that we gave you Meghan Markle. Now you got Ellen? I mean, for God's sakes, you're getting the worst of the worst.
Ellen sort of slipped into the background. It hasn't created much of a stir here. She's gone to the Cotswolds, she's bought a farm, she's jazzed it up, and now it's on the market for many millions of pounds. But apparently she's not keen on the UK, which is a shame, I suppose.
You guys don't even know she's there? Is that what you're saying?
Pretty much. I saw something the other day saying she was going to go back to the States because life in the UK was too hard. I don't know. I would have thought it might be hard for anyone to switch countries like that. But I suppose she probably had to light her own fire in the Cotswolds. But apparently there wasn't enough room for Portia's horses or sheep or something. But yeah.
Here, I got a solution. Take a boat that's coming ashore and send them all to her $20 million estate. And then she'll have all the help she needs.
She can look after all the incoming crew.
Yeah.
Get them to work, lighting the fires and creating enough.
My guess is the fact that you're saying that the UK people really don't even know she exists has got to be driving her crazy. She's a megalomaniac. She's got to get herself back into the news. I just saw her just say "Oh, I'm so concerned Trump's going to take away gay marriage. And if he does, we're getting married in the UK." Right? Nobody cares about this woman anymore, and it's driving her crazy. Let's walk this back a second. So here are people that have a platform of fame and money and are making a statement that they're worried that disenfranchised people, immigrants, illegal aliens, whatever they're calling them, gay, LGBTQ, they're worried about losing their rights as a member of the group. And so they take their millions and flee and don't stick around and try to help. I just find it incredibly disingenerous.
You're right. It is
disingenerous. It's just, there's a lot of people here that don't have those resources that do believe those things and are rolling up their sleeves and fighting like crazy to make sure those rights stay intact. again, this is sort of you'll never be woke enough. So she lived this fake life, and then it cracked. And when it cracked, it all went tumbling down, and she couldn't handle it. And she fled this country because she's a coward.
This kind of statement is the ultimate virtue signal. It sort of contradicts itself by its own action. I do feel sorry for the people who, like you say, roll their sleeves up and get on with it and fight the fight. But
Yeah,
again,
I guess my question for you is, did you make her show ID to get into your country?
I'm pretty sure she arrived at an airport, yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah. Now we're at the part where we do our regular segment, yes, no, why. But this week, I think we're going into favorite quotes. Rodney, I want to know what your favorite quote is, why it's your favorite, and if it's changed over the years. Go ahead and tell me your favorite quote.
My favorite quote is, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
That's a brilliant quote. Okay, I love it. I wish that was mine. Why? When did that become your favorite quote?
My mom used to say that when she was swearing and whacking me. And, like I said, once I heard that first swear word, I started paying attention, and she said that to me, and it just stuck with me. And by the way, it couldn't be more true.
And it's kind of nice, outward looking. It's you're constantly reminded how what you're doing is having an impact on the people that you're doing it around. I love that. Brilliant. Love it. Mine are all really self-serving, I'm afraid. I quite like the more you practice, the luckier you get. People look at success, particularly in the UK. It's not the same in America, I don't think. People celebrate success in America. In the UK, they look at success and think, ugh, they were lucky, or they're attention seekers, or whatever it might be. So when they're sort of throwing the luck claim around, I like to say, yeah, the more you practice, the luckier you get. We haven't really concluded anything, but we've got our point across, and I think the bottom line is that it's important to keep talking about it, because if we don't talk about it, nothing will be resolved ever, and we won't make any progress.
But I would also add, not only are we talking about it, more importantly, our leadership is talking about it. And according to your prime minister, he's getting a handle on the illegal migrants and stopping the influx of all these boats coming ashore. Trump's resolved that issue here. And I think people need to keep an open mind and trust the processes that are in place to help and protect everybody. That's what I would say.
I'd love it if our Prime Minister did get a handle on things. That would be a great help. So far, it is just words. But, the term, as they say, is young. So we'll see. Yeah, let's keep talking. That's the key point, isn't it? We have to keep talking about it.
See, I told you. It's as simple as saying one word, immigration. And boom, we're ready to rumble. Harriet, how are you feeling today?
Well, after that debate, I think I'm a little nervous. This was thorny, but as a great UK Prime Minister once said, this is Margaret Thatcher, just for the avoidance of doubt, if we don't talk about things, it drives people to extremes, and I don't want to go to those extremes, so I think it's better that we talk about them. So however nervous it makes me to do this, I think it's worth doing.
Is there anything else you want to get off your chest?
Oh, I'm sure there are plenty of things, but let's save that for another episode of Yes, But You're Wrong, which is what you've been listening to today.
We hope you enjoyed listening to Yes, But You're Wrong, the show that tackles everything. If there's a topic you'd like us to dive into, be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, or X and leave us a comment. Just search Yes, But You're Wrong, and we should pop right up. Yes, But You're Wrong is produced by Wallach Worldwide Entertainment and can be enjoyed on most of your favorite podcast platforms. Thanks for tuning in.